Welcome to The Last Track, where we help people showcase the last track of their life story in their final wishes. I am your host, Brian Norris, the co-owner of Bateman Funeral Home in Newport, Oregon. Just like a song can bring you back to a day, a time, and a memory, so too can a well-planned service. And today, let's talk a little bit about some Catholic services. Normally, there's going to be some holy water that's going to be involved, and that water will have been blessed, maybe at a grotto, or maybe a father has blessed that water. And that's going to be used at different times during the service, especially if you're at a church or if you're here, as the casket enters into the narthex and gets into the beginning part of the chapel. You'll see a casket stop. And then at that point, there'll be some prayers. And then there's going to be a pall. And a pall is just, it looks like a blanket of some sort that goes over a casket. So if you see somebody coming in with a flag on the casket, that flag will be removed. So, because first off, you can't place anything on top of a flag. But second, the flag will come off of the casket and be placed in the back on a bench. If there's flowers on a casket, if there's a beautiful casket spray on it, that casket spray is going to come off that casket and be placed at the back of the church on a pew. And then a very simple, sometimes elegant, but mostly pretty simple, there's going to be a pall or like a blanket placed on the casket. On that, we'll probably have a cross. Sometimes you'll see it where it looks like a very standard cross, and it's just a normal cross, and it might be in the design of the pall, and so that is going to be placed on the casket with the cross up at the higher end of the cross over the head portion of the casket. Most of the time, there's going to be a universal pall, and that's because people just can't seem to get it right. So, and that's good for us funeral directors too, because sometimes it's kind of stressful and you're trying to make sure you're getting everything right, and you're laying the pall and you're having the pallbearers or yourselves placing it over, and you get it upside down. And if it's a universal, it literally is like a cross going right exactly through the middle of the casket, so you can't screw it up. But the pall will go on everyone. And if you listen really close to what the priest is saying, or whoever's the officiant of that service, they will say something to the effect that everyone is born into this world the same, and everybody goes out of this world the same. And it's a pretty poignant thing to say, because when you're born into this world, you're naked, and you're just like everybody else born into this world. We all come into this world the same. And when we die, the manner of death may be different for everybody, but the result is still the same. And there's always that saying, you've never seen, a trailer hooked on the back of a hearse going to a service, because everybody goes out of this world the same. And so that is a beautiful lesson that is taught to everybody that's attending that service. You'll also find a crucifix in a Catholic service is going to be a little bit different than what is considered a Christian cross. The Christian cross is a very plain cross. Might be wood, might be metal, that type of thing. And it has on the top, it says INRI at the very top, which is going to be written in a different language. It stands for something different. But then there's going to be Jesus that's actually hanging on the cross as well. And that is a very, very traditional Catholic cross. A lot of people are placed in the casket with one of these, and it's sealed in the casket with a person holding one. The other thing that may be is during the viewing portion and during the rosary portion, this cross may have been placed in the casket up, up in the top portion of the casket, and it would be sitting there. And at the end of that, generally at the end of the rosary and the end of the viewing, the funeral director or somebody will remove this cross, and then the priest will bless the cross, and then we would present it to the family, possibly the widow or the widower, or the son or daughter, or the family member that's representing the deceased, and they would receive the cross. And they can have that in their home to remember that person by. And a lot of times they ask us if we just leave it in the casket with the person as well. You'll also find in a Catholic service, you'll see some beads, and these are rosary beads, and generally they can be of any different color. They could be wood, they can be pearl, they could be all kinds of different things, but they will have the beads, and each one of these stations here has a meaning. So when you've heard the term pray the rosary, well, as the person is praying at the rosary, praying for the individual, praying the rosary, and they're going through and they're saying Our Fathers, the different prayers that go at each one of these stations. So when you pray the rosary, you pray the rosary, and each one of these things has a stopping point so that you're saying different prayers and you're talking about different things. And at the bottom you have, in most rosaries, not all, but in most rosaries, you'll have the Virgin Mary or La Señora de Guadalupe, or you'll have some representation at the end of the rosary. So the praying of the rosary will happen prior to an actual mass, funeral mass. A lot of times they do the rosary the night before, or they do the funeral mass. They do it just before the funeral mass. A lot of times we'll do it right just before noon, the noon mass, and then it just gets incorporated into a regular mass. And then they do the different portion where they will bless the casket. They'll use holy water. They'll use some incense, some smoke around the casket, and that's what will take place in the Catholic service. And many, 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 many times, the personal rosary that was maybe the favorite of the grandma or the mother or the father or that type of thing will be placed in the person's hands if they're being buried, and they'll be placed in his hands in the casket. So we've talked about a lot of different things. We've talked about Holy Communion as well, that will take place during the Mass. That generally, as you're going through a funeral Mass, they will have and offer Holy Communion to the family members of the decedent, as well as the rest of the congregation who may be there present. So those are some things to look into. Very interesting. And let me stop for a second and tell you, it is an absolute honor to be able to serve these families, to be able to be welcomed, to be an observer and sometimes a participant in these really special, sacred rituals. And it's a special honor to be given, to be trusted enough to be able to be involved in these types of services. And I'll tell you, that's one of the reasons to get into this industry. And I'm not trying to sell you to get into the industry. I'm just telling you one of the reasons I'm in it, because being able to do this for a family is extremely sacred, and it's a great honor. So if you have a different religion that you'd like us to cover, please comment and do that as well. Well, we have reached that time in our podcast where we take a time and we take a moment and we remember all the families that are experiencing a loss, and we light a virtual candle in their memory. Let's take a moment. If you have any questions, send us an email at info@batemanpacificview.com. Forward it to your friends as well. This has been The Last Track. I'm Brian Norris. You can find out more about Bateman Funeral Home at our website at batemanpacificview.com. You can visit us on our website, and you can also leave us messages there, or you can visit us on Facebook. If you have any feedback or any questions about today's episode, you're welcome to call us at 541-265-2751, or you can send us an email at info@batemanpacificview.com. We would love to hear from you. Please send us to your friends, and thank you for listening.